In this lesson we are going to talk about non-linear animation, and it really sounds complicated, but it is not. So I will not bug you with technical details, but let's just say that non-linear animation is a way of non-destructive animation techniques. So basically you can create segments of your animation on single object or complete hierarchies and then do anything you want with it recorded segments of animation. I'm pretty sure that sounds really abstract, but let me show you this on the most simplest example so you can follow easily, but at the same time understand the power and potential of non-linear animation. You see we have our female here, so it took some time of recording and created this rather distinct walk cycle, so something a little bit more natural. And for the time being I will hide this and collapse that hierarchy because we will use a simple object for demonstration. Of course I could even group this all and simply hide the complete hierarchy, and here we go. Let's now use some simple objects for demonstration. Let's also get rid of this attributes manager like this, and we have more screen real estate this way. Now you probably noticed that the components of our rig are being highlighted even though we hid them with this visibility dot in the viewport, and that is because of this viewport setting here under character object. So if my mouse is over object, they will be visible. So actually I want to turn this off to none. So let's see, and there we go, because it was a little bit distracting, at least for me. Now let's collapse that and happily continue. So I will use a simple object for demonstration. Let's actually use just one segment and maybe create it to be hollow. Now, to use that non-linear animation features inside Cinema 4D, we have to add a specific tag which is found here under Cinema 4D tags. Let's actually drag this like this, and there is this motion system. So let's add it. You can scale this backwards. Now, this tag will be added automatically via some of these animation commands, but let's first concentrate on what this motion tag or motion system actually is. Here we can see some parameters, and most important part of this motion system are these layers, and these buttons here correspond to commands which you can do with those layers. So if I click add here, I will create a new layer. Now within this layer I can record any animation and it will be contained only within that layer. So let's give it a shot. Let's actually rename this guy. So these checkboxes are actually a ways of selecting a layer with which you want to work with. So let's rename this guy, and let's use the same concept we had in animation course. So we will call this layer move X. Okay, so we will record a movement in X, but only on this layer. So let's do just that with standard animation techniques we utilized in our animation crash course. So let's add a keyframe here with control clicking, because this is the most predictable and cleanest method of adding keyframes. And let's scrub our time to, let's actually go to the last frame and maybe move this 200 units and add a keyframe. So now we have our object once again happily traveling. So let's take a look here what happens in our animation layer. So what if I tune this down, let's say to 50%. So we will have just 50% of the motion. Now you can go maybe 200 or so percent and you will have that value of motion. So that is really something good. Of course, you can turn off this animation, and for this to be a little bit more clear, we have to create another animation layer. So let's do just that. Let's add another one and rename it. And this time we could go with move Y, and we will just temporarily disable this guy like this. Let's add keyframes on Y. So we will select our object once again, and we will keyframe the Y value. So let's go from 0 maybe to last frame and go 200 units in Y. Let's add a keyframe. So now our object is only animating on Y. So if I enable this move X guy, once again, this is what we will get. So it's effectively mixing those layers. This is a really, really powerful concept and idea in Cena for this. So this is the power of non-destructive animation. So you can layer and stack your animations in this manner. Now let me explain some of these parameters here. So I will enable this show summary path, and let me just hide the axis for a moment. And this is our path of animation. If we enable our guy, the path will naturally change because now it's mixing between those two. You can of course choose how you will mix that animation and create completely different animation of what you had initially with the layers. Now this rotation mixing simply instructs for which method to use when dealing with rotations. Okay, I hope that makes sense. This adds layer, this collapse will collapse everything. Let's actually do just that into this default layer, and we will get this little guy. Let me undo that. This open in timeline will simply open that complete motion system like this in the timeline in this motion system mode. So in our animation crash course, we had key mode, we had F-curve mode, and once you create a motion system, you get this motion mode or motion system mode or whatever you want to call it. The next item here is rename, which is pretty much self-explanatory. So as delete, duplicate, and the only thing that is a little bit abstract here is this set to 0. Well, basically it resets the coordinates to default layer values, and in that case that is the coordinate values of the object to which this motion system tag is assigned. So this is a little bit abstract, but I believe things will be much clearer after we show some examples. Let me expand this guy. So everything that has this motion system tag will appear here in this list, and you cannot delete it. So you will try to remove all objects and it will still be here. Okay, don't let that confuse you, because if I hit this open in timeline, here it is again. So you're not actually deleting anything. So to delete this, you have to delete this motion tag. I hope that makes sense and that I didn't overcomplicate things. So these guys here are completely the same as these ones here, and actually we could switch to animation layout like this. So completely the same thing, but we just have this timeline docked. Now here I have some additional capabilities. So just like in here, I can, for example, choose the strength of each layer, but here I can go even a step further. So I can even animate the strength of these guys. So in one moment, let's say this 0 moment, it could be a value of 100. And let's say in maybe frame 30, it could be, let's say, 10 value like this. And if I hit play, I will have a difference in animation. And of course, my summary path which will show me how my object will travel, will change. Okay, I hope this is clear enough. So I can create segments of my animation. I can create layers, and this is a really powerful feature because you can create complex motion, as I will show you on this character, with creating segments of your animation. Let me just undo this, and there is a nice little feature inside this motion system mode which allows you to convert any of these guys, well, relatively speaking, because it's not really technically correct, but I'm trying to explain you this in the most simplest manner. So you can right click on any of these guys and choose convert to motion clip, and that will give you this. Now, why guy it disappeared? Because now it's a motion clip, and we also got this motion source here. I hope you're still following me. So let's actually delete this guy like this, and we have just movement on Y like this, and it's completely the same as we had inside animation layer, but now we have our motion source and our motion clip here. And these motion clips are absolutely fantastic. So if I select one, you will see I get attributes specific to motion clips. So let me just briefly demonstrate you what these motion clips can do. Well, you can scale them, for example. So now my object will reach that position within this frame range. You can move them. You can even right click and make transitions between them. You can cut them or connect them, for that matter. And you can even define the strength of that complete motion clip layer. Now, of course, this is not the end of the line, so you can even loop these guys. So let's actually add one loop here, and you will see our animation extended. So now my object will do its motion twice, which is really great because I didn't have to manually copy that keys. Also, you have a relative loop. This means once my object reaches this last point, instead of going back to the beginning of the animation, it should continue from this point. So how about that? That is simply great. So how about this? You see it kind of stopped here and then continued. Let me stop this, go back. These blending options are really to define how the transitions between the motion clips will be done. So currently it's set to ease, and we have a few options here, but think of it as a way of saying Cine4D how to make transitions between motion clips. Now you may think that once you have a motion clip that you cannot access the keys, the actual animated values inside that motion clip, but in fact you can. You can right click and do a show in key mode, and you'll actually access that animated Y value from the beginning. So you can change even that. Of course, you may prefer the F curve and work with that. So that's a lot of flexibility there and a lot of power. Of course, there are also advanced animation capabilities. So if you right click on this guy, which is actually considered as a track, you have many ways of saying what and how will clips behave and how specific track will behave. Also, under this motion system, there is this motion view where you can actually define what will be shown on this and every other motion clip. So this is a general preference. You can set clip name, you can set without name, you can set untrimmed values and stuff like that. So very, very powerful. Now, here is one really important concept for you to understand, and that is that when you create a motion clip of any kind, you receive this motion source, and think of it as a container of all your animations. So let's actually do something that will really describe this non-linear animation to its core. So let's say that you maybe deleted your object accidentally, but you still have this motion source. Okay, so you're not restricted to using exactly the same object, but this works only on single object, and in case of hierarchies, your hierarchy with which you created motion clip and therefore received motion source has to be identical. So let's add a motion system tag to our guy, and let's actually expand this. Let's say open in timeline. Of course, it will show us that object, this cube, and we can now drag this motion source and simply apply that movement from our motion source. So how about that? That is what I find to be simply fantastic, absolutely mind-blowingly fantastic. And just imagine the potential for reusable asset. Of course, you can create maybe some advanced stuff like pivot. So in this case, let's actually scale this cube down a little bit so you can see what the pivot is. There is this object here, which is a little bit odd. Let me show you this little guy here. So it creates a null in Object Manager with which you can actually move that complete animation. So if you have an animated walk cycle, and if you assign any parameters, speed, scale down the clip, resize, do pretty much anything that pops to your mind, you can move this guy to have your character walk in a line rather than just walking in a single place. I hope that makes sense. So how about this? I'm actually moving the origin of my animation. Let me stop this, go back. I think you're now pretty much aware of the potential of the system. So let's actually now do some serious stuff. I can right click on this guy and say delete without children, and I'll set my display mode to isoparms because we don't want that dense geometry to bother us. And let's delete this motion source by hitting delete simply here. And what I want to do now, let's say that you created a walk that you really like, or any movement that you like, and it also doesn't have to be movement, it can be also a static value. So now let's say that I want to bake everything from this C motion into regular keyframes, so I can use that motion clip to my advantage. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So to do that, simply select the master controller, and that is in this case pelvis, and go animate, add motion clip. Now you'll get a little pop-up menu where you can choose various parameters. Now I remember that this walk cycle from my C motion guy is 30 frames, so complete cycle happens in 30 frames. So I want to bake this from 0 to 29, because 0 to 29 is 30 frames, and if I will loop this, I want the frame 0 to be the first frame, otherwise I will have one unnecessary frame. I want to create a motion clip, I want to bake expressions, because C motion is actually an expression. I can remove included animation from original object, which I cannot do because this is parametric animation, but let's just leave it like this. I want to bake position, rotation, and parameter animation. Also, as far as the hierarchy is concerned, I can bake everything. Now, the name of this source, of this motion source, will be whatever you set here. So let's set this to simple walk like this. So now I will hit OK, and we will give it some time. Now once that it is completed, you'll get these strange looking lines in the viewport. So let's actually just scale this window down so you can see better. And the reason for it is a little bit buried inside this hierarchy, but I have to enable full hierarchy visibility. And you see it actually gave us, let's scale this, it actually gave us this motion system tag on our master controller. Now let's turn off the C motion because the C motion is not needed anymore. And immediately the character jumps into its default pose. Now all the motion is now contained in this motion source walk. So if we hit play, we actually have our walk baked, but just one cycle. So we can hit open in timeline, which will show us our motion mode, but unfortunately, due to a little bug that will probably be resolved, maybe even at the point when these tutorials will be released, is that you cannot see, let me just reset my animation layout like this, that you cannot see that animation layer if this character object is not made editable. So if I hit C to make that character object editable, and beware that pretty much destroys the ability to add anything to your rig, and it also in most of the cases destroys this C motion, guys. So save before you do that. So let me hit C like this, and immediately I get my master controller here with the default animation. So like this. Now what you are seeing here, these green lines are actually ghosts, which really represent some sort of emotion, and most of the time I turn them off. And now once our viewport is a little bit more cleaner, for example, you can now also loop this animation as many times as you want. You can create relative loop. You can even turn off stuff within hierarchy which you don't want to be animated. So maybe you don't want a left leg to be animated. So how about this? This is endless world of possibilities. So what I want to do now is I want to save this motion source, this master walk, and I can actually save that to my disk as a separate file, so as a reusable asset. So I will right click and do a save motion source as, and I can save my file as anything I want. So I will save this walk like this, and now you can get rid of this guy and create another type of walk or run or anything else that pops to your mind. So let me just briefly pause the video and I will create a few of these sources, and then we will do something interesting with them, so I can show you the nonlinear animation and some motion clip mixing in real world usage. So I will just briefly pause the video and we will be right back. And here we are back, and we have three really simple motion clips that I created from my character by using the same baking techniques through this animate add motion clip. Now let's actually scale this down and maybe this a little bit here, and we can see that motion a little bit more interesting. So here I have stand, walk, and hello motion sources. So I can apply, let's say, a stand motion, and I want to turn off this ghost, and let's say that for maybe 30 frames or so I want my character really to stand, and it will simply stand as the time passes. Also, I think I will add more time to this, let's say maybe 200. Let's expand to full time. Now let's say that after that I want my character to walk, so I will drop that motion source here, and We'll also turn off this show ghost and maybe for a start, just put it right next to this motion. So let's see what do we have. And we have a abrupt change. And this is exactly what we don't want. We want a soft transition. So that's really easy. Simply overlap them a bit and use your artistic sense. So how about this? Let's go even maybe further. And don't forget you can loop these guys. Let's actually add maybe 3 loops like this. Let's frame all or press H, whatever you want. Let's see how that works. So it's slowly easing into the walk, and once it finishes, it stays that way. Let's actually use maybe just 1 loop. And maybe after that, I really want my character to do a simple hello motion. And let's turn off show ghosts and let's put this clip like this. So it's standing, slowly easing into the walk. Of course, this is really basic, but I hope you get the idea. You can really play with this and achieve nice transitions with this blending and various modifications to either keys inside the motion clip or have curves, and then it continues to walk, and then it slowly should look to the camera and do a simple hello motion. So let's overlap this a little bit. Something like this. So it's nothing fancy or to write home about, but you will get the picture. So our character is standing, walking, then stopping and saying virtual hello. So how about that? This non-linear animation is absolutely mind-blowingly superb. So you can create as many reusable assets as you want. You can loop them, cut them, create transitions, blend them. And this is only a single layer. You can stack as many of these layers you want. So I really hope that this shows you how powerful and vast animation capabilities in Cine 4D are. I really hope you enjoyed this lesson, and let's actually continue with our next lesson, and we will expand even more on animation capabilities in Cine 4D with our Cappuccino tool and some explanations regarding motion capturing within Cine 4D. So let's do just that in our next lesson.